Chancellor Karl Nehammer stopped at the Ukrainian town of Bucha, where authorities say hundreds of bodies are being found. Well, afterwards, he met with Vladimir Putin in Moscow. I spoke with Mr. Nehammer a short time ago and asked him why it was so important to talk with the Russian president in person and what he thought of Vladimir Putin's mindset. Have a listen.
First of all, my first trip was to Ukraine to meet President Zelensky and Prime Minister there, to visit Bucha. You know, this is the village where we could see a mass grave. We talked there to the priest, and he informed us that the people in this mass grave were murdered by Russian soldiers. And afterwards, I did a decision to go to Moscow to look in President Putin's eyes and confront him with that, what I saw, the war crimes, the loss of Russian soldiers and Russian army, the need to stop the war, and the clear message that the war has to end.
How was Vladimir Putin's demeanour in your meeting? How do you read his mindset at present?
Well, he was very clear in his messages. In his point of view, he has to defend the Russian Federation, the Russians living in the eastern Ukraine. I think we will see that the war will go on. He was clear in his messages. He is in his own logic about war. I think this is very dangerous now. On the other hand, he mentioned the Istanbul peace talks. And I think the Istanbul peace talks could be a chance to stop the war.
Putin said on Tuesday that peace talks with Ukraine had hit a dead end. You're suggesting that when you spoke to him, that you still see an opportunity in those talks.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, I give you now my impression I had because he mentioned the Istanbul peace talks. And I informed President Zelensky about that. And before I went to Putin, I discussed with President Zelensky if it is useful to do this trip. He said, please, if you go there, tell him that it's now needed to have safe corridors, humanitarian corridors for the people in Mariupol. They don't have water, no electricity. We have to think about the wounded there. So these were also the messages I confronted President Putin.
Some Europeans and some Ukrainians criticized you for going to Moscow at this point. What's your response?
I think it's useful to go there, to look in his eyes and to say the war has to end. Because, you know, I think it's also useful that other prime ministers of the European Union talk to him by phone calls. But I think it's much more stronger, first to visit Kiev, to visit Ukraine, to see what is going on there, and with these pictures in the mind, going to Moscow and confront Putin with these pictures, with what you saw there. You know, the war crimes have to be investigated by the international justice. And I think it's much more stronger to look someone in his eyes.
Did you accuse him of war crimes?
Well, I confronted him with that, and I told him that it's necessary to have the international justice, the United Nations there. And, you know, for him, it's not easy to talk about that, but we have to do that.
Did he accept that there are war crimes being committed?
Well, you know, it's President Putin. In this position, he was not clear.
Is it your sense that Putin is getting a full reporting of this war from his generals, from his military assets on the ground?
You know, it's a really good question. I don't know it, but what I know is to confront him with that is useful. I think to do something is better than to do nothing. And well, I think other European leaders should do the same. But the most important thing is to visit first Ukraine, to see what is going on there, what happens there, to see the suffer of Ukrainian people, and to confront Putin with that.
You spoke to President Zelensky. He is absolutely adamant that sanctions should be ramped up on Russia, including sanctions across the board on energy. The European Commission has said nothing is off the table. Are you adamant that Austria will not agree to oil and gas sanctions under any circumstances?
Well, first of all, Austria is not alone with this argument against the gas embargo, and also the German Federation, Hungary, and other member states of the European Union. And on the other side, Austria stands strong with the other EU member states with the sanctions against the Russian Federation. But sanctions must hurt Russia more than the European Union.
Do you worry that the issue of a gas embargo could fracture what is otherwise, at present, a united Europe?
No, I don't think so, because, you know, we are 27 member states, and we decided together about the sanctions against the Russian Federation, and the sanctions already decided are really tough and strong. And we will decide about more sanctions against Russia because, you know, we want to show that there is unity in the European Union, that this war has to end.
But there isn't unity, is there, on the issue of gas, for example? And that's really important because President Zelensky implores Europe to do more on energy. And at this point, despite multiple sanctions, rafts of sanctions, to date, they haven't stopped Vladimir Putin. So if not energy, what else is left in the toolbox?
Well, a lot of possible sanctions. Now we decided new one, for example, for small electronic parts produced in the Western world. And these small electronic parts are used in Russian weapons. So an embargo is very useful to stop a tank, for example, or to stop a drone. I think we should think about sanctions now in a more intelligent way, how we can hurt the Russian Federation, but not be hurt us. I think this is the main important thing. You know, there is a decision in the European Union that we try everything to become independent from Russian gas. And it's also the willing of Austria, for sure. But it's not possible now. It will take time. And in this time, we had to decide about other sanctions, as I said, who hurt Russia more than the European Union.
Do you genuinely believe that what is this, multiple rafts of sanctions to date on Vladimir Putin are working?
It's a good question. I think it will change our sanctions. We decided it will change the Russian situation for decades. I think Putin knows that. What we see now is that there is a war inside Ukraine. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, I think he needs also a kind of way out. And maybe the Istanbul peace talks could be this way out for ending this war.
Austria is militarily neutral. Final question. Will you reevaluate this stance, given the conversation that you have had, given the suggestion that you have made that this is going to go on? Is there?
Well, you know, well, you know, we are military neutral, but we have a strong opinion against war. And we stay on the side with the European Union with the sanctions against the Russian Federation. And the question of neutrality, you know, or you have to know that the neutrality in Austria is deeply rooted in our history. And so for us, it's not a question to give the neutrality up.